Ah, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time. From the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios, I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss. Big show coming up, 16 days until MLS is back. 5 days until the CONCACAF Champions League. We have got a ton to talk about. New signings, Thiago Almada. He is in Atlanta. Douglas Costa. He is wearing a Galaxy kit. That is official. Shaqiri. He is coming to Chicago. Matt Turner to Arsenal, done. The Red Bulls are spending gam on their own players. We've got Ezra Hendrickson of the Fire. That's part of 4 teams we will preview today. The Fire being one of them, RSL being another, and then 2 MLS Cup contenders in the Seattle Sounders and New England Revolution. We are ranking our top 5 wingers and hitting the mailbag for all the historical mentions of teams on Extra Time over the past year. What will we find out from the data? Goodness. We don't want to know. What's up, guys? How you feeling? How you doing?
It occurred to me, I'm feeling this. I'm very in the moment here. It occurred to me that in your intro saying, here, you know, my friends, partners in soccer, that you don't ever list Anders. You know, and Anders is a big part of the show. That seems
unfair.
Right?
Yeah, he's almost more than a partner. Like, he's kind of like a silent partner.
You know what I mean?
He's the money.
Unless you're reading the brains chat. If you're reading the chat, he's definitely not silent. But I'm wondering if Anders deserves a promotion to your intro when you're listing your partners in soccer.
I think you're probably right about this. Mm-hmm. He has always deserved sort of a mention at the end, and only sometimes do I remember to mention him. But he is fortunate in that he gets mentioned every show, whether we're, doing the whole producing Anders bit where we're saying, no, we won't follow your directions. No, Anders, your buzzer means nothing. So he gets his moments, but mostly they're dismissive moments.
Yes.
Can I throw out a query that's floating through my head as Doyle went through that whole thing? Yesterday, pulling the shade away, Doyle put into the group chat that we should add the David Goss Theorem Player of the Year in our preseason predictions. And now he's stepping up with this Anders love. This feels like a silent coup beginning over Wiebe to take the show. And that's the only way I see love. I don't see love as a thing that you just give. It's a reciprocal.
I gotta say,
it feels like Doyle's all of a sudden the biggest.
It's no longer silent. You've said it. Yeah. Whatever was happening in your other group chat, your parallel group chat, you've brought it into this one.
There's a group chat. I'm just out here watching. Maybe I'm gonna make the.
I put that into the group chat that you're in. You don't read the messages people send. You only send like 5 4-word responses in a row. Like that could easily have been one like standard length, not even a run-on sentence, just a standard. Anyway, if I was doing a silent coup, I was doing so like even unbeknownst to myself. But when you spell it out like that, David, it does actually make a lot of sense.
Well,
in fairness, I've been reading a lot about Russia and Ukraine recently, so I'm on alert at all times now.
Well, a lot of coup talk to start the show. Go check out MLSsoccer.com. Tom Bogert, Matt Doyle, they have the DP U22 rundown. That's really good. It's amazing. I've been begging Tom for this for a while, just for my own use. He basically lays out where every team is as far as their spin goes on those top tiers as far as roster building, and then Doyle gives his thoughts on what they should do with the spots that aren't filled or otherwise. The call-up had Miles Robinson this week, and it is an amazing interview. Go listen to that. Go subscribe to the call-up if you don't do so already. And if you're listening now without subscribing to us, that's just not right. Please hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends who love the league about us. That would be great. Here's the preseason headline that might not mean jack. Ake Loba is looking like the Ake Loba we were sold on and that Nashville was sold on. He's setting up CJ Sapong. He's looking good. Gary Smith is saying, yeah, he's looking fit. He's looking healthy. This was not Ake Loba last year, but we think it's going to be this year. Dave, level of 1 to 10, how jacked up are you about Ake Loba realizing his prodigious potential in this league?
14.
This would prove the theorem.
Scale of 1 to 10. Yeah. Not only would it would prove the theorem. It also, you want guys like this to make it because we're talking about an in your prime player coming out of Liga MX. And that is a spot that MLS has gotten better at. More guys we've seen like Zeller Ions and Rui Diaz who are 27 and up, which is great because that is your prime. But where you look at the age range and the quality that Ake Loba comes into this league in, you would love to see him hit so other teams try and follow that model a little bit more. And we've talked about it a million times. If MLS wants to be a top league in the world, we've got to be the best league in our region. And that's one of the ways you get there. And for Nashville, this was their one big home run attempt. And when you look at how they improve as a team, most of it comes down to the individual improvement of Ake Loba, and I would like to see that for Nashville. So very excited. Can I tell you mine?
No, I got to ask you first. Is Ake Loba your Goss Theorem Player of the Year?
No.
Okay, so you were just blowing smoke blowing hot air with all that.
Well, no.
I have so much smoke to blow, Doyle. I can spend some on Ake Loba and use more in other places.
The whole point of the theorem is that it's not like individual. It's wide ranging. Mm-hmm. This is macro. It's not micro. It applies to everyone. So he needs wins from all corners. Like, you can't just have Ake Loba. By the way, hit us up. We'll give you all of our categories very, very soon for our prediction show. It is my favorite show of the year, mostly because you can't hold us accountable, and we just get to say whatever we want. So it's like every other show. You had a thought, Dave.
Yeah, my preseason thing that I'm noticing, and I'm very unhappy about, is the Philadelphia Union bringing a throw-in coach to their preseason camp. He's worked with Liverpool. He's worked around the world. There is nothing I hate more than a long throw in the game of soccer. And if you are bringing someone in to work on it, that means you're going to attempt to use it, and that makes me so unhappy.
Wait, do we know for sure that it's a long throw, coach?
No, I mean, if it's just a coach to come in and say, hey, rather than throw to the middle of the body, throw to the thigh or the foot and throw it quickly.
Hey, 2 feet on the ground. Hands over top, all right?
I can send my email and my phone number out there. If people are looking to hire people to do that as a consultant, I am available. If that's not what he's doing, which I would assume that's not what he's doing. Then
why? Are Liverpool known for long throws?
No. Yeah. So I don't really understand that part. But I just hate long throws.
All right.
It's good to tie Liverpool to your name when you're a consultant. Everybody knows that, Doyle. Come on. If you're trying to get the big bucks, you came from Liverpool, okay? Our thoughts go out to Brian Galvan. He's out long-term. Young player for the Rapids. It looked like he was going to take a big jump this year, so that's a real bummer going on in this preseason. We'll mention CONCACAF Champions League. That's getting close. We'll talk about the Rapids, I believe, on next show, and that's when our full CCL preview will be. Let's real quick go into the rapid fire for the news. Thiago Almada.
The Rapids, the most underrated team on ETR.
Really?
For standings and mentions.
That's incredible because we'll find out in the mailbag. Because I feel like we really gave them a lot of pub, but maybe not. Thiago Almada signed for Atlanta United. I don't have to tell our listeners, who I think are pretty plugged in on this stuff, that there is some baggage with Thiago Almada. Baggage is one way to put it. You go do the research. There have been some issues he's had legally in Argentina, though it seems he has been cleared of those. There's been some issues he's had with making a racist gesture on the field, or at the very least racially insensitive. Darren Eales says that he's learned from that. He understands it's wrong. I hope that he understands that it's wrong. And now we get to see him up close. We'll see how they handle that off the field side. On the field, Doyle, how big is this signing? I mean, he's the most expensive transfer in MLS history. He's $16 million reportedly. That makes him number one, just $500,000 more than Pity Martinez and $1 million more than Ezequiel Barco. Those guys, it didn't work out that great. Will Almada work out better? That's the question I think everybody in Atlanta has to be asking right now.
Yeah, and we really do need to wait and see. Some of the numbers really like him. He's able to do a lot of the stuff that Barco is good at in terms of dribbling guys and getting on the ball in tough spots. Like, he's not afraid of the ball, which is something that you really want to see. Other the numbers don't love him that much. Like, he hasn't been a great chance creator. He's been a good chance creator, especially for his age, but he hasn't been great. And so before I weigh in on how good Thiago Almada is going to be, I want to see how he does in MLS. Now, the one thing I will say is that based upon what I've seen of him and what all the data says, he's really good in transition. He's really, really good in transition. And Gonzalo Pineda comes from the Brian Schmetzer coaching tree, and he's going to want that Atlanta team to play in transition. So I think it might end up being a better fit in Atlanta than Barco was, because Barco, for all his gifts, was just brutal in transition. And I'm a little disappointed that he ended up going to River Plate instead of, a Saudi team or a UAE team, because I was hoping I would never have to watch him play again, because he was the most frustrating player I've ever watched in MLS. But because he's at River Plate, I'll probably catch him, 3-4 times this year. I think Almada is going to be better than that in those moments.
that last few sentences was a real roller coaster experience.
I mean, I don't know. That was just straight
talk style.
Woo, straight down.
Ezequiel Barco drove me nuts from day one, man. To see a guy who's that gifted and could at times do it, just put his head down time and time and time again and kill attack after attack after attack. I'm just happy for Atlanta fans that they are getting, I think, a guy who will be a better player in that position.
Some scar tissue there. There are a lot of Atlanta United in the top 10 transfers of all time that Tom Bogert put in for MLS. I mean, at top 6, you have Araujo, who, of course, came in at $12 million. They need more from him. Pineda told us that. We know that. Barco, Pity Martinez, Almada, they are not afraid to splash the cash. We'll see if that works out for them. In this case, DC United signed Michael Estrada on a season-long loan. We were talking about that on the last show. They got it done.
Can I throw two things out there, even though we have to move on?
Sure.
One is part of those transfers, though. Look at the money they got back on PT. When you're operating in that space that Atlanta United is, there's more risk because of the money, but also less because the perception of Almada around the world already exists. Barco as well. And so I think at the worst that can happen is another team takes the shot on that guy that you did. The other is Barco had played 2,300 minutes in his career when he came to MLS. Almada basically played that last year. So this is a player with more professional experience. I think more ready because with these DPs, as many pieces as Atlanta has, there is responsibility on your shoulders. I think Almada's closer to being ready to take that than Barco was.
I don't think we're going to dig into Michael Estrada. We kind of did on the last show. This is a big signing for DC. It's unknown. Reportedly $5 million purchase option at the end, but you knew they needed to reload a little bit, and this is a kind of a big body in the box, a goal scorer. We'll see if he can be that guy for them, and we'll see what happens to Ola Kamara, by the way. Sporting Kansas City, Peter Vermees says, we are very, very close to signing a forward. We'll announce it early next week. It's not Kai Kamara. He confirmed that, but maybe it's a different Kamara. Maybe it's Ola Kamara. I don't know. We'll see.
And the one thing about Ola Kamara I think we haven't mentioned properly is he doesn't make a ton on the cap. So it's not like they have to move him. If they're bringing in Estrada, they have Roberta, they have other guys that can play there. I think they have to get the right offer. Otherwise, it's fine to have quality on your roster.
Douglas Costa, he's quality. That's official for the Galaxy. It's a little strange. Juventus loaned him to Gremio. Gremio is now loaning him to the Galaxy. There, in 6 months, his contract will run out. After that, I believe the Galaxy will sign him to a 2-year free agent deal. That's what I'm understanding. We'll talk about him a lot more here in a little bit in our top 5 wingers in MLS. Will he make the list? You'll have to listen to find out. Darwin Machis will not make that list of the top 5 wingers in Major League Soccer. Tom Bogert tweeting, breaking, Charlotte FC's deal to sign the Venezuelan international from La Liga's Granada is off. All caps off. $6 million deal was agreed. Medical was complete. Machis was in Charlotte, but the deal is off. Again, all caps off. There's a reporting ongoing legal issue in Spain regarding Machis that is unresolved, says Tom. I don't know what that is, but doesn't sound promising for Darwin. So he will not be in MLS.
The reporting out of Spain,
Matt Turner, that's done.
Out of Spain was that he was in a bar fight. So,
really?
Yeah, back in May of 2021. So, yeah, it sounds like this is not happening.
Yeah, it's off. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself after I did it a couple times. Matt Turner is done. Taylor Twellman reported that first, then Tom came after him. All the stuff is signed, finalized, signed, sealed, delivered, etc. He is gone in the summer. We'll talk about that more with the Revs. And then the Red Bulls went and dropped I don't know what, they dropped $575 in GAM to get the allocation spot from Toronto FC to go to 14-2. Then they had to trade another $100 in GAM to swap with FC Cincinnati. Cincinnati now moves back up into 1 because the Red Bulls had to use the number 1 to get Caden Clark back, who was their player in the first place, except they sold him to RB Leipzig, and then he was on the allocation order because of it. That is a very convoluted way of saying, what were they doing? Why didn't they make this a future sale? Why didn't they loan him with an option to purchase at the number they wanted to? Those are all questions for the Red Bulls, but in the end, Caden Clark is back in the fold, just still 18 years old, 6 goals, 5 assists, and 31 appearances for the Red Bulls.
That makes sense in this, and for everyone listening to a podcast, I did air quotes with my hands, which means I don't totally believe this, is that there was intent for Jesse Marsch to have him on his roster. Since Jesse Marsch has been let go, now there is less of a desire for Leipzig to have him. So when the sale was made, maybe there wasn't an idea that he would come back to MLS. After that, they then had to go through all these mechanisms. Either way, it was poorly handled.
Red Bulls also reported on the brink of signing Luquinhas from Legia Warsaw. All right, let's get into our club previews here. We'll start with an interview with Ezra Hendrickson. I chatted with him yesterday as part of our MLS Works Black History Month speaker series. Enjoy. All right, it's an AT&T 5G call to the field. To the Windy City we go. Ezra Hendrickson, the head coach of the Fire, the head coach of Xherdan Shaqiri as well. Big news today, big day in the Fire world. We're taping on Wednesday. This is coming out Thursday, but how do you feel? Are you excited? I mean, to get this sort of player, this tool into your team, that's got to be thrilling.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I spoke with him last Saturday, and within the first 3 to 5 minutes, just him, his excitement, his just, you could just tell he wanted to be here, and he wanted this deal to happen. And I'm just happy that we were able to get it across the line, because sometimes these things, they go in the right way and all of a sudden something happens, but we're excited to have him, and I think he's going to be very good for us here in Chicago.
You said you talked to him last week. I know that coaches like to, keep these things behind closed doors, but when you get an opportunity to talk to, Shaqiri or any player who might be coming to join the Fire, how are you trying to pull out of them what you need to know? What do you need to know? What do you need to understand from a guy like that?
Just basically tell him what I'm about, my philosophy, talk about my style of play and what is going to be expected of him. And he had all the right answers. He's a guy who's willing to come and work. I let him know that, it's a very young, inexperienced team, and his leadership, beyond just playing is going to be needed. And he's all for it, and I think I trust him that, him coming here is not going to be a vacation for him. He wants to win. We talk about just bringing success back to the organization, to the city. That's so well deserved. So it was good to, just sit down and talk with him and get to know him a little bit and see that, his enthusiasm about coming here was very high.
I thought it was interesting what you said in your press conference, which I was just listening to just now, about big name players and expectations and making those expectations crystal clear. How do you approach managing a big name player like Shaqiri? How is that different from managing the rest of the guys on a squad that is young, as you said? You'll have to do it differently. Yeah,
well, that this guy has been there, done that, so to speak. He's played in big games. He's won big championships and stuff like that. So I always say you treat everyone fair, but not everyone equally. So Shaqiri might have a little bit more leeway than, say, a 19-year-old Moniz or someone like that. But he has to, respond when he gets the opportunity. When he's on the pitch, a lot is expected of him. When he's off the pitch, because the guys are so young, his leadership in the locker room, because being a young team, there's going to be some inconsistencies. There's going to be some ups and downs. And when things aren't going well, you need that player who's kind of been there, done that, to really lift the guys and let the guys know that, okay, maybe it's the first half, it didn't go well, but we're still in this game and we could really pull this out. Because young players tend to hang their heads when things start going bad. So his ability to lift guys verbally, or maybe on the pitch, just that one moment of brilliance on a set piece, could really, change things, for a staff and for a team. So he has that type of quality. He's one of the players that we see as someone who could come in and be a game changer, who could really, the Almiron back in Atlanta a couple years back.
How do you get the best out of this guy? How do you get the best out of a number 10 in MLS? How will you set things up to get the most from Shaqiri?
Well, I think one of the things I've learned, because I was in LA when Zlatan was there, Clint Dempsey up in Seattle and stuff like that, Zelarayan, as you mentioned, in Columbus, and these players, they want to listen to you as a coach. They want to be told their roles. So I think sometimes some managers, because they're a big name player, they expect them to come in and just know exactly what is wanted of them. But I've learned that you have to really explain to these players, okay, this is your role, this is what we expect of you, and make sure that their role is also clearly defined as the 19, 20-year-old that you may have on the pitch. So I think that's one thing that, that I try to do as a coach, is make sure no matter who the player is, make sure he knows what is expected of him when he steps on the pitch.
What is next for the Fire? You have a DP spot open. You have a U22 spot open. There is more work to be done, I assume. Do you expect those spots to be filled? I mean, I'm seeing rumors out there. Paul Tenorio's doing his thing. He's out reporting, saying a kid from Atlas may be coming in. As a coach, I know you don't have complete control over this. This is George and the rest. handle it on the technical side. But do you expect to have more help on the DP or U22 front?
Yes, definitely. I think it starts with the owner. We have an owner that's very ambitious, that he's a Chicagoan. He really wants a successful team, a successful organization in that city. So I think he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. But it's a process. We're constantly looking to make the team better. And we know the positions that we need filled. We've done a really good job, I think, of filling them so far. But there's still more work to be done, as you mentioned, and we're going to continue, looking. I mentioned in an interview a couple of weeks back, we're going to comb the entire globe, trying to find the best fit for this organization, the best fit for how we want to play and what we want to look like and what the identity of our team is going to be going forward. So
I have a depth chart up in front of me. I don't know if I'm right about your formation. I have as a 4-3-3. Ezra, help me out here. What are we going to see from an Ezra Hendrickson team in MLS from the Chicago Fire? Is it a 4-3-3? Is it something different? Do I need to change this? Where are we headed here?
Well, I'm not really big on systems because I think the game is so fluid that sometimes you may start in a 4-2-3-1 and it ends up looking like a 4-3-3 and stuff like that. But if you want to talk system, I'll say a 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
I think that gives us the best opportunity to play the way I want to play as a coach, my style of play. I think 4-2-3-1 gives us the best opportunity to do that.
You're never going to sign Andrew Wiebe to a MLS contract, but pretend I'm Shaqiri. You're on the phone. You're talking to him about who you are as a coach, what you see, what you believe about this game. Like, give me that conversation. Like, tell me those things. I want to know.
Well, basically what I told him, I could tell you, like, listen, you're someone that we're going to want on the ball a lot. We're a team that's going to want to possess, but we want to have progressive possession. We don't want to just keep the ball just to be keeping the ball. We want to end product, which is goals. So we're going to need you to find the ball, and we're going to be looking to play forward, breaking lines and getting into the front half of play. We want the game to be played in the opponent's half because I think that gives us better opportunity to score, and it also reduces their opportunities to score because we're now in their territory, so to speak. So playing a number 10, which, he'll be playing for us, his ability to get on the ball and make things happen, unlock defenses, is going to be needed. And he's capable of doing that. We've all seen him do that for his country and for clubs. And we don't expect any less when he gets here.
Is wing a spot that needs to be reinforced? Am I correct in sort of looking at the depth chart and saying, that's probably an area that you're looking to add?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
All right, wing. We'll look out for that one. Who's impressed you so far in preseason? You're just getting started. Who are some guys that have jumped out and you said, oh, okay, I see something here. I like it.
Well, John Duran, the center forward, 18 years old, but he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this league. He's playing behind Srebelka right now, but I think he's a very, very, very good player. And I think you always want to have, especially in that position, someone who could come in and just keep the level just as high. So he's been doing well. The left back, Miguel Navarro, I think has been very, very, very good. We lost him for about 7 to 10 days with the Venezuelan national team, but he's back now and he's looking, just as good as he did before he left. And we have a lot of, other players that's doing well. Gaston is looking a lot better than, we've seen from last year. So that's good. And in the back, Shields coming in is just, he's a good player, very good player. He's going to help us on the ball, and then defensively he's organizing and he's very hard on the tackle, so we're doing our best to put together a good team, but we know that there's still a lot of work to be done, but the players that we have in has been showing well, and it's a new regime, it's a new coach, and players are still trying to learn my way of playing, but I think the progress has been very, very promising.
So when we do the preview for you guys, which we're going to do as soon as we finish this interview, we always do realistic expectations. Okay, what do we think can really be the 2022 season for the Fire? When you think about the expectations you have for yourself and for this team, how would you lay that out?
Well, a goal of ours is to make the playoffs. It's not going to be easy, but we think it's possible. In this league, anything is possible. But my mentor, Ziggy, he always said, 3 points in April is just as good as 3 points in October. So we want to hit the ground running. We want to get off to a good start and, get as many points as we can, because sometimes when the dog days of summer hits, sometimes it becomes difficult, and other teams start getting reinforcements and stuff, and everything just becomes tight, from August on. So as many points as we can get, in the early part of the season, we're going to try to do that. And then we'll see what happens from there. Maybe in the summer we add some reinforcements ourselves. But, I think it's very important for us to get off to a good start. And if we do that, I think the playoffs is something that, we should expect.
I'm on record. I will take multiple shots of Malort should the playoffs come. Have you ever had Malort? I need to know.
No, I've never had that.
Never had Malort. So if it goes down, Ezra, will you commit? If I can find my way to Chicago at some point, I will toast some Malort to you and the Fire should you guys make the playoffs. Are you in?
Definitely.
All right. Look, I have to ask you about Siggy. I mean, he's one of the most special people I've ever met in not just our little soccer sphere, but in ever met.
Yeah.
And working with him and covering his teams was a pleasure. I wonder what you still sort of lean on from your many, many years with him. What are the things that you constantly go back to that he taught you?
I think Ziggy's someone that cared about his players. If you notice, all his players, even from his days of college, and they always kept a good rapport with him. The relationships never ended until, unfortunately, he passed away. And I think that's something that a lot of coaches miss out on. They don't really form that personal relationship with their players. Now, you don't want to be too friendly with a guy that, it interrupts your decisions or it clouds your decisions. But showing a player that you care about him on and off the field, Ziggy's someone who will always ask about your family. How are your family doing? It never was just about soccer. He always brought that personal element to it, and which, sometimes we didn't have the most talented teams, but we won, because he made sure that we were so unified and the team was so together on and off the field that, we were a family. And I think that's something that I'll always take with me about the way he cared about players and made sure that the team was more like a family than anything. I think that's something that will still stand out for me when I talk about Ziggy and what I've learned from him.
Special man.
Yes.
Let's just, where Siggy went, he won. Where you went, you often won in this league. Got a ton of trophies to your name. Chicago Fire haven't done a ton of winning. They have 2 playoff appearances since 2010. How much responsibility do you feel? How big is this job to get the Fire in a huge market with so much potential back to where they should be? Do you feel pressure in that sense?
Well, yeah, there's pressure, but it didn't matter where you're coaching in this league. There's always pressure because, we have very good fans in this league, big city, big market. But that's a challenge that I gladly face. It's a challenge that I wanted to take on. It could have been easy to just walk away from it, but that was never me. Even as a player, when I faced tough challenges, I always wanted to, I never ran away from them, so to speak. So being one, when I interviewed with the guys, I said to them, listen, my idea of a team and the identity of the team, they're going to leave every game, win, lose, or draw, saying, you know what, I'll be back to watch that team because those guys were challenged, and I'm going to get these guys to put smiles on these fans' face because they deserve it. It's been a while.
What does it mean to you to be a black coach in today's MLS? Not just in MLS, in professional sports. We're seeing everything that's of, Robin Fraser and so many other people around the league, as well as the Black Players for Change. What does it mean to you?
But I think as a minority coach, being in this position, hopefully that inspires other coaches. Hopefully that gives hope and belief in other coaches who may not think that it's possible, as you mentioned, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And as long as you're seeing progress and as long as guys are given opportunities, I'm all for that. But I don't want it to be to fulfill a mandate or anything, but it's a legitimate opportunity. And if you're qualified, hopefully I could be inspiration to a lot of minority coaches coming up.
Do you think the new hiring initiative does enough? And did you ever feel, you've been an incredibly successful assistant coach for more than a decade. Did you ever feel like, man, I'm getting overlooked here? or I'm not getting a fair shake?
Well, I think sometimes it creeps into your mind. Not that you're not getting a fair shake, but you sometimes wonder, okay, when one guy was the head assistant here, they won. He's the head assistant here, they won. I was ready when I did get this opportunity. I didn't want to sit there and sulk and, feel sorry for myself of it. And so that's where I'm at with that.
Your opportunity's here. How's that first game going to be?
And from a lot of the Caribbean countries are coming up, because this thing is bigger than me. This is bigger than just in the States, because if there's one thing about Caribbean people, when we have someone that's successful, may it use for a weekend and support us. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I've waited.
Big thanks to Ezra. So jealous of all of you that will be at the party in Miami for his first game. I'm sure that's going to be a blast. Here's the haiku from the Fire in 2021. On the precipice of what? New badge, new results, or more Keystone Cops? Well, turns out they were on the precipice, and then they fell over the edge, and here they are in 2022 with a new coach and a roster that's been basically torn down. So 2022, years of suffering. Can you taste playoff Malort? The Power Cube can. So Ezra, Ezra committed to a shot of Malort with me. Ugh. Should the Fire make the playoffs? That might have been wise on his part. That might have been a big mistake. But
have you ever had?
Here's Shaqiri.
Have you ever had Malort?
No, I haven't. So that's the beauty of this.
It tastes like illness.
It tastes like the last decade of Fire soccer.
Oh,
is what you're
there
saying.
You go. Okay.
So hey, look, I'm down for it. You know what? With joy comes pain, and if they can get there, I am absolutely down to pound a bottle. Look, the expectations say Ezra
are the whole bottle now.
No, probably not.
Don't commit to that.
Just like a sip.
Do not commit to that.
Okay, I won't.
Anyone who's ever tasted that stuff understands that just a sip is enough. You'll have proved whatever you need to prove.
I've had some that's not that bad, but I love the idea that Ezra's probably a teetotaler and just was like, whatever you want to say. And then when it comes to it, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not touching that stuff.
Yeah, fine. No, not for me. Not for me. The Power Cube, man. Shaqiri's in. We'll talk about that in depth in just a second. Key signings. Rafael Schijos, the defender from the Bundesliga. This seems to be like maybe the biggest one outside of Shaqiri. Shabilko via trade. Kendall Burks is in camp now. That seems pretty big for them. They got 3 homegrowns they brought in this offseason. Spencer Ritchie comes in as insurance should they sell Gaga Slonina maybe in the summer, TBD, but in the meantime, he is their starter. The star spotlight, though, is Shaqiri. What do you guys think of Shaqiri? What do you think of the Power Cube? And Anders, anytime you want to hit us with that drop, you are welcome to do it.
See you soon, Chicago.
Chicago. See you soon, Chicago. What? He's like a Bond villain. It's absolutely wonderful. Is this a big signing for the Fire? It is in name, Doyle. Can it be in actual substance?
Yeah, I mean that's always the question with Chicago signings in particular. It's always a question with guys who are on the older side. And 30 is older than most DPs that we've seen entering the league over the last 5 years. That said, he's still in his prime. And we know that Shaqiri, when he plays, and he's just a fantastic player, man. He's a starter for Switzerland. Switzerland's a top, dozen team in the world. And he's been very good for Lyon this year. He was useful for that Liverpool team for a good long time. This is a super talented player. It seems like a smart signing to me. And especially so because, as Ezra said, he's going to use him as a number 10. I don't necessarily want Shaqiri on the wings running up and down for 90 minutes. I actually want him getting into the box as much as possible. And with the way that Fire team is set up with Navarro and Jimenez behind Shaqiri, I think they're going to try to establish possession and at least positional dominance deeper in midfield, and then be able to release Shabilko and Shaqiri, in transition essentially, and get Shaqiri into the box. So a goal-scoring number 10. It makes a lot of sense. There are still pieces that need to be added for this Fire team, especially on the wing. But I really like this signing. I think Look, I honestly think I'm more excited about this signing than I am about the Insigne signing.
That says a lot.
Doyle hates Insigne.
I don't hate him. I think he's really good. No, I think he's really good.
We'll do the winger convo after.
Oh, God.
We'll do the winger convo after. I think for Chicago fans, there should be that level of excitement. This is a proven player, still ready to play, signing that they've pretty much never made, right? You look at Schweinsteiger and even Cuauhtémoc Blanco and guys like that, a little bit on the other side, and then Ali Seda and players like that who were sort of bust, and then, I don't know, Nikolic sitting right there in the middle. But this is a player that, as Doyle said, his pedigree is super high. He has won games at a high level. He is a match winner, probably on any field in the world when he's on. And as I said last show, that's my only question mark with him, is you're the DP10 of a team. You can't disappear for games. You have to be able to affect every single game, even if you're not on your top of your game. Can you at least use your gravity to make other players' lives better and easier? And that's something that Shaqiri is going to have to show that he can do. He hasn't been that player except for Stoke City. In his career, he's been an impact sub outside of national team. So that's a huge question mark. There's that level of connection with Heights, which I think is good, of the honesty of selling the project and the responsibility he's going to have. And if Shaqiri is willing to accept that, and clearly he is, then he understands what he's stepping into. But there won't be a game that they play where he can't be the best player on the field.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty good ace to have when you play across MLS.
And let me just add an addendum here. Like you made the point, and you're right, that he's never been that focal point type of guy outside of Stoke City and the national team. That's still 200 games of experience as a focal point kind of guy. So it's not like, oh, can he? And it feels almost like the Nico Ladero discussion, where it's like he was a focal point to a degree before, Boca Juniors, and he was a focal point of that midfield for Uruguay for a few years. I would argue that Ladero had fewer than 200 games, though, as a focal point, whereas Shaqiri is like right at that number. I don't think there's a lot of mystery. I think there's more mystery with regard to how he will handle the heat, the humidity, the different environments that you get in the U.S. as opposed to European soccer. Sorry, Weeby, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
No, I was just sort of making the point that you guys are making here, that it's been a while. It's 17-18 for Stoke City. At least at the club level, he has not played more than 1,000 minutes, but once in that time. That was the next year at Liverpool, which was, again, mostly as a sub. He's not made more than 11 starts for a club team in a season since he made the 36 at Stoke City in 17-18. Now, I know that there's a lot of national team intermixed in there, and we had people hit us up, and there's always questions about these things, and we'll have another over-under for the Fire, but MLS Gone Wild hit me with an over-under on Shaqiri's combined goals and assists. They set their line at 10.5.
What?
And I thought that was insanely low.
That's insanely low.
That's just, if that's where he's actually at for this Fire team, that would, in my mind, that's a bust.
Oh yeah,
that's a huge bust. I think your expectations have to be set higher. Now there is a question whether, in practicality, he will hit that. What would you set the over under at though for him? Combined goals and assists, Doyle.
I'll double that. I'll say 21.5.
So you're saying he has to go double.
Yeah, or like 15 and 7, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm a Fire fan, if I'm the Fire front office, I'm way more focused on the 15 than the 7. He's got to put the ball in the back of the net with the way the 4-2-3-1 works, with the type of passing that they have in central midfield. He is there to score more than to create. But I think if we're going combined goals and assists, 10.5 is insanely low.
So my thought process with him is, I think there's a decent chance that he just rips MLS apart the first 2 months because he's coming in form, right? This move just happened. He's been training with Lyon. Obviously, he hasn't been playing a ton of games, but he's in game shape. And so I think there's a chance he hits the ground running. We're, 2 weeks away from the season, and just lights everything on fire. The question is, does he have the legs to sustain? Could he start last June in preseason in Europe? Well, I guess you had the Euros, and then he went pretty much straight to preseason, and then run all the way through to the end of this year for a guy who, as we said, hasn't played over 1,000 minutes in 5 years of soccer. That's the question mark for me. So I think I agree with Doyle that those numbers are too low. I would probably hit the over, but I just wonder how it's going to be spaced out. And for Chicago, you have to manage his minutes, I think, and you have to sort of probably, if the roster is similar to what we see now without really any impact wingers, you probably need to make a big addition in the summer to take some of the load off his shoulders.
Now, Ezra said, look, we're looking for a winger. We'd like to have that position. Paul Tenorio reported that sources confirmed to him that Chicago Fire are targeting Atlas winger Jairo Torres. He's a 21-year-old Mexican, 5 goals, 5 assists in 45 games. And Liga MX would be a young DP, but long path to get that one done. Obviously, they are working on it. I did think it was funny that we're certainly making the David Goss theorem a thing. MLS Gone Wild says he's heard the Goss theorem over the last 3 episodes of Extra Time so much that he's basically brainwashed into thinking that Shaqiri will underperform and then be really good next year. So
You're not allowed to be good year one. That's the rule.
It's never happened.
We're doing the Lord's work here. We're doing the Lord's work. My thought is like 10.5. That's what you're hoping the over-under on like set-piece goal assist contributions might be. Right? Like between direct assists off set pieces and maybe even direct goals off those. Like that's the sort of production that the $7 million reportedly transfer fee would be. The profile that he is. The player he needs to be for the Fire to take that step forward and for me to take a shot at Malort with Ezra. Like that's what you need. You got to have it. 2222 player to watch, Gago Slonina. This is maybe the guy I'm most excited in the 2222 sphere to watch this year, Doyle. He is a special player, and we are ignoring this buzzer absolutely for the sake of Shaqiri.
I mean, he's already kind of established himself as the most accomplished teenage goalkeeper in MLS history. And he's the youngest guy ever to start a game in goal, youngest ever to post a win, ever to post a shutout. He does not play like a 17-year-old. He plays like a full national team caliber guy, which is kind of what he is at this point. And I remember a few years ago when the Fire, it was a previous regime, but when they let Damian Las go, they let him, he was another homegrown keeper. They let him walk and everybody was up in, including me, everybody was up in arms saying, like, what are you doing? How could you do this? And they're like, trust us. Slonina is the guy. Like, this is, we're going all in on this kid. And it seemed crazy at the time, and it does not seem crazy now. The only question with him is how long will Chicago have him? My hope is that he can get another 2 years of games in MLS, get up to 6,000-7,000 professional minutes, and then make the big 8-figure deal. And it's going to be 8 figures to the right situation. Don't jump at the first, the first opportunity. Make sure it's the right opportunity, because for all young players, the most important thing is reps, and he's going to get them in Chicago. They're not taking him out of net for the next, however long he's there. He's going to be the starting goalkeeper. That's never been the case with a 17-year-old before in this league.
And I like the signing of Spencer Ritchie, because he's a guy who can help develop Slonina, but he's not a threat to start. And that's not a knock on Spencer Ritchie. It's just a clear role for him to come into. It's not a starting level MLS keeper who can step in if Slonina gets sold or if Slonina is underperforming. It is kind of with the knowledge for everyone that you're giving Slonina your trust and you want him to be that guy. And listen, he made some big mistakes last year. As Doyle said, he set every record as the youngest goalkeeper. That's going to happen. But I think you've seen the confidence in him to just understand he can play at this level. And now your hope is you put a more established, a better back line around him. You have a team that's more potent offensively. You really hope that central midfield has less holes in it. And it's only going to make his life easier as he learns the game more and more. And I think it's fair to expect a lot from him this year.
What's incredible is that, you could say 3 on the depth chart. Maybe he's 2, and Spencer Ritchie truly is just there to sort of usher these guys through. They have another 17-year-old goalkeeper out of the academy from Naperville, and Chris Brady, who reportedly has interest from Club Bruges. To have both those guys, that's crazy. And Slonina's now into the U.S. national team, that third keeper there. Where does his future lie internationally? That's been a question mark. But if you're wondering, should I watch this Chicago Fire game? Gago Slonina and now the Power Cube, or the Swiss, I don't know, SpongeBob, whatever. I don't know if that's
think the Alpine Messi is his name.
Alpine Messi. I like that one too. Yeah. There's always a reason for the fire. There hasn't been reasons in the past. For me, Federico Navarro is another one of those reasons. You heard Ezra talk up Miguel Navarro as well. John Duran is an 18-year-old Colombian forward, might play at wing, might play up top, that Ezra was just crowing about. Like, this is going to be, not for once, it's going to be an entertaining team. We haven't always been able to say that. Here's the over-under, 45.5 goals allowed. Basically, is this defense going to improve? That's the big question. Chihos is, I think, outside of Shaqiri, and maybe not more important, but as important in a different way, that is a huge signing for them. Sounds like Carlos Terán is going to be his partner, and Mauricio Pineda, I mean, Ezra said it on a call this week, is more of a midfielder now, which is interesting. Doyle, what are you taking, over or under on 45.5 goals allowed?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to hit the over. Probably not by, it's a good line. But they'll be better than last year, but I don't know. It's tough to see them being that much better unless Chihos really is like walks in and is a best 11 caliber guy, which might be the case, but I don't think that's where the smart money should be.
You're not getting Arne Fredriksson vibes? Like that throwback?
Arne Friedrich?
Oh, damn.
Maybe he was so proud of himself.
Just move on, Weeby. Just move on, Weeby.
No. Okay, here's the mailbag. We'll get out of here. Simple question from Nicole Hack. Will the Fire actually make a return to the playoffs this season? How do you think the new coaching staff will impact their chances? So this is basically this is fine. We already sort of did that. You know, Shaqiri underperforms. They don't go get that winger. The defense is still as bad, and they don't make the playoffs yet again. Only 2 times since 2010 have they made the playoffs, so that would be in the norm. Or a lot of this stuff hits, and they sneak their way in probably. What do you think it'll be?
I think they improve. I don't think they make the playoffs. I'm still going through what I think with the East. But I think obviously Nashville leaving opens up a spot. I think Montreal and Columbus are improved from last year. So I think they have to jump over some other pieces. But I think this is a Chicago team that will be in the conversation coming down the stretch.
For me, they're one of the high upside mystery box teams. Or they're maybe one signing away from being a high upside mystery box where it's like, wow, they really put it together. They ended up on 63 points. And the other side of that is like, wow, it didn't work. And they're on 40 points and they're going to miss the playoffs again. I think it's more likely that they miss the playoffs, but I also think it's completely reasonable for Fire fans to be excited about this current roster build in a way that previous iterations did not spark excitement or joy or anything of the like.
I'm going to put the band on them as far as points go between 45 and 50.
That's narrow.
If they hit 50,
damn, Weeby.
Yeah, if they hit, I mean, I just think that's probably where they're gonna be. If they hit 50, they'll be either like right on the brink or in the playoffs, 6, 7 seed. If they go under 50, they probably won't make it, but they'll have a lot of reasons to be happy because they had 34 points last year and a negative 18 goal differential. So that would be a huge step forward for them. All right, that's the Chicago Fire. Any thoughts? Let us know. Let's talk Real Salt Lake, the haiku from 2021. Who will take ownership of the club and on the field? Who's here for RSL? 2022, Sandy's salvation. The battle hymn has begun. Go big, RSL. So this is the difference ownership can make. I mean, they were completely unsettled, and more than that, it just felt like the culture had deteriorated in a club that had really like leaned on culture in their most successful periods, which had been some of the brightest moments in this league's history. You know, those Christ-led RSL teams and Garth Lagerwey built, I mean, those were special teams in this league, but they had lost so much of that, and the ownership issue was a big one. Well, that's been solved. We still haven't yet seen we've seen some benefit, but still have 3 open DP spots. So that's why I say go big, RSL. That's this new era. The old era was like, who's here, man? Who's going to take the reins? Who wants this team? Well, we know now who wants the team. It's Blitzer, it's Ryan Smith, it's local ownership, as well as a guy that has, sporting properties around the world and expertise and spending power. So how much will they use that spending power? That's the question that is yet to be answered for them. Key signings so far, they re-signed Everton Louise, Justin Miram, Scott Caldwell in as a reinforcement in free agency. Sergio Cordova comes in from Augsburg. He is not a designated player. It seems like he is a TAM player, and they signed 5 homegrowns. Dave, this is like sort of their historical DNA, at least in the recent history. We're just kind of waiting for that high-end spin on the other side.
Well, one, it's good to see that the new ownership group hasn't deviated from what they've done well, which is they've built out probably the best academy facility in the entire league. What they've put together in Salt Lake City now, with the dormitories, with the training center, with all that stuff, there should be a ton of excitement about these young guys. And so it's good to see that they're not ignoring that and moving on and saying, let's sign, 3 DPs and that's all we care about. And I think Cordova is a step up for the team from the talent they had last year at the winger position. And then you push Miram back into a more comfortable position. You push Julio, if he does come back onto the bench. You don't force him into being started. I think all of that's an improvement for this team. There still needs to be a talent upgrade. If they want to say we went to a Western Conference final, now we're ready to take the step to being a consistent top 5 playoff team this season and the next season, I don't think this roster is good enough right now, but I think it's in a really good place to upgrade. I think I feel comfortable with a large parts of this back line. I'm a big fan of Pablo Ruiz as a young player in central midfield. They've got different styles of strikers they can use. Krylock's obviously flexible. So there are pieces where you could see how 1 or 2 DPs could fit in, and you wouldn't have to, you're not going out and finding a DP and rebuilding a team around them, but you also don't need that player to carry you year one.
Yep, I agree with all that. That said, the big thing for me is the Gustavo Cuellar reports. This is, he's been one of the better players for Colombia for more than half a decade now. He's 29 years old. He just played an excellent game against Chelsea yesterday in the Club World Cup. He's a guy who has been ahead of Diego Chara on Colombia's depth chart. Now, whether that's fair or not, it gives you an idea of how good this dude is. He is kind of an ideal DP signing for this RSL team, given where they are, because he instantly upgrades them in the center of the park and allows Pablo to sort of toggle between that 3-5-2 that he loves and the 4-2-3-1 that they ultimately had to settle into. The other part that needs to happen now is they need to get a pure chance creator. Ideally, someone who can, flip between the wing and the number 10, because I think if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1, you'll want to leave Krylock as sort of a false 10 who makes those box arriving runs, and then if you get playmaking from the wing, that works out really, really well. The overall picture is, as you said, David, like this team is in really good spot to instantly upgrade, because I think the structure around those open DP slots is really, really good. If they get those 2 signings right and then add a left-footed left back as well, buy a lot of RSL stock, because it could end up being like this team. Like a lot of people would be like, wow, they kind of came out of nowhere, especially after losing Rusnak. It's like, no, they might upgrade that spot, and they might upgrade at defensive midfield. And if you do that, then this team that had 50 points and made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, we're talking about 60, 65 points.
The over-under we had, and I'll just move that up, the rundown here, was 1.5 DPs signed.
Over.
That's, I think, I would say over the course of this season.
Saying this window?
I don't know if that was in this. I don't know. Let's say this window, which I think would run through. Usually the winter window in MLS runs through like May-ish.
Yeah.
So if you're saying Gustavo Cuellar would be one of those, okay, let's just say that's one. Then you're asking yourself, could they get another one in, or would we be waiting till summer? I don't know. Do this window, and then
there's enough smoke right now with 2 weeks to go. It doesn't feel like there's enough movement on that, which I think could be fine too. They bring in Cuellar and they already brought in Cordova and the rest of the pieces you have. I think this could be a solid team through the first half of the season, and then you have someone else coming in the summer to upgrade you. I don't think that's an issue, but I would go under on that.
What profile do you think they're going to have with this new ownership, Doyle? Like spending profile. Do you think they'll be, maybe not, they maybe not be like, they're probably going to be Atlanta United or Toronto or, whatever it is that are in the very, very top echelon buying players for 10 million plus. But they should be more than they were before.
I would assume so, yeah. looking at what Orlando City did this offseason, seems like a good template, right? Like, go big on a young, high upside player from South America, and then make what looks like a smart value signing on a guy in his prime from Europe or elsewhere. But like that, while at the same time obviously still continuing that RSL DNA of bringing guys through the academy and making sure that's a part of what you do. But like that seems like a manageable type of approach from a new and ambitious ownership group, but not necessarily an ownership group that's going to go full Atlanta United or Toronto FC with the really big number spending.
Star Spotlight is Damir Kreilach. This is our opportunity to give Damir all the love, Dave, and he deserves it. 32 games last year, 16 goals, 9 assists. You take Damir Kreilach's name off that, and you just give somebody those stats, and they're saying that's a best 11 player, one of the best players in Major League Soccer.
And at 2 positions. Like, he's done it in midfield. He's done it at center forward. He did it in the playoffs. He's done it in the playoffs his whole career. He did it in huge moments for RSL when it felt like their backs were against the wall last year and their coach was leaving and everyone kind of counted them out. So, and you look at the commitment he has to the club, I think kind of the face he's become for the club off the field and everything in this offseason is how happy he is to be in Salt Lake. He's been a dream signing for them. And I think if you rewind this show and go back and listen, like we were talking about him as the fix next to Kyle Beckerman, as the deep lying midfield and covering ground. And none of that has been true, but he's been an even better signing for them than you could have imagined. And I think parts of last year, you kind of felt like, oh, it'll go away. And it hasn't his whole career. And I think we should stop thinking about it that way. But his movement is brilliant, and he understands where all the pieces are on the field and how to pull pieces around. His reactions are incredible in the box. When you look at all of the goals he scores off knocked around balls and just being the most aware player there. And then he can do unbelievable things from outside the box. His form, his ability to strike the ball, and especially off the karate chop. He's awesome. And yeah, he doesn't get in those conversations. I think part of it is he plays as a 10, he plays as a 9, so he's not a pure either. And those are the two, most star-driven positions in this league. But if he has another season like that, I wouldn't be surprised if we put him in our 11 at the end of the year.
My buddy Elliot McKinley, who does amazing work with American soccer analysis, he put out a data visualization using Second Spectrum Second Spectrum data the other day, and it's movement of every attacking midfielder in MLS in the 3 seconds before a shot or a goal. And Kreilach's is amazing because like a hugely disproportionate amount of his movement comes from like curving slowly to the back post. Like the amount of shots he's able to generate by just letting the center forward make the near post run and then finding that soft spot at the back post and rising up for back post headers is astounding. And he finds it time and time and time again. And that's one of the reasons why RSL have got to go out and get someone for that right wing who is just a pure chance creator, because we've seen it now for years. If you find, have good patterns of play in the final third and you find Kreilach on that back post, he's going to score you 10 to 15 goals and he'll pick up 8 to 9 assists as well by those like wonderful cushioned headers back across the box. Just a wonderful player.
RSL hit me up and they're like, "Hey, can we send you a jersey and we'll put your name on it?" And I was like, "I don't want my name on a jersey. I'm getting that Damir Kreilach kit. Be rocking it right here in the soccer cave. Going to be awesome." 2222 player to watch, David Ochoa, just turned 21, so he's eligible for this one, which is sort of incredible. Feels like he's been around for a long time. And just watch him. He's just fun to watch, man. You might hate him, you might love him, you might feel something in between. But he is a young goalkeeper who captures the imagination and the emotions that are bouncing around within a soccer game, and he plays them in a special way, depending on your perspective. He's just so fun to watch. The last playoffs, I don't think there's a player that I enjoyed more watching when the game was over. He just understood how to make his personality stand out and how to get under your skin and make you feel something, and we need more players like that.
And I love his personality, and I love that he can play with it and do that. But the other thing you saw in the playoffs was, outside of those moments, focus on being clean in goal, right? And we saw him pushing off the right foot, making the saves he needed to make. And I think that's the part that you just want to see progress this year is you don't have to stop doing anything that makes you who you are. And you don't have to change anything about that. The other half of the game, though, you just have to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit more focused on making those plays. But he's already in a Mexico national team conversation. He probably, did we mention him in our top 5 goalkeepers? He's probably already pushing into that list. And at this age for a goalkeeper, as we said with Slonina, that's fairly unheard of.
I think that's his thing for this year, right? Is to credibly push into that top 5 goalkeeper list. Because I don't think he's there yet, credibly. But he has an opportunity to do so, and it's a great situation for him. A ton of trust from the coaching staff. He's going to play those minutes. It's a big year for David Ochoa. Mailbag question. It'll kind of sum up our This Is Fine and why it could be their year as well. LD Arambula says, will you all please project RSL to finish dead last yet again? All of us out in Salt Lake City would greatly appreciate it. So I believe we did that last year. We won't be doing that this year. I don't expect, Doyle. But I do think that they are still sort of on the cusp. I don't think anybody's going to come on this show or otherwise and say RSL is a guaranteed playoff team. Maybe that'll happen in Salt Lake, but they still just sort of feel like they're on the edge.
If they get Cuellar, I'll guarantee that they make the playoffs.
Ooh,
yeah. He's that good.
That's
right. Like
that's spicy.
He would walk in and like no David Goss theorem. He would walk in and be a top 5 D mid in the league. And if you have a top 5 D mid, you probably not going to miss the playoffs. If you have a top 5 D mid and a team that had 50 points last year and good foundation around it, I would be really surprised. So I hope they get this deal done. If they do, this is a playoff team. If they don't, then it becomes much more plausible that we're talking about this as a disappointing first season for the new ownership group.
I don't have anything more interesting to say about RSL's potential results than that. So we'll just leave it there. New England Revolution, the haiku from 2021. In Bruce, the Revs trust. With a full season of heel, Cup is a real goal. Well, it was a real goal. Turns out maybe Shield is what I should have tossed in there. But for 2022, Bruce knows how it works. Cup winners get remembered. Window is open. So the championship window wide open here, as it will be with the Sounders when we talk about them. Key signings so far this offseason: Omar Gonzalez, Sebastian Lletget, and Josie Altidore. TBD maybe. I don't know. We've talked this one up pretty good. We haven't seen the official on it, but reportedly he is training with New England.
Obviously, I'm aware that all those players have joined the LA Galaxy, but to hear them read in a list, and it just takes you on a memory lane down Bruce Arena's career. You got the LA Galaxy, then you've got Lletget coming in, you've got Josie from the national team. It's just nice. Everyone's coming back together.
It's very Bruce. It's very Bruce. This is what he does. And it was so Bruce that you said it's incredible that all these players are joining the LA Galaxy.
No, I said I was referencing to his moments in his carear where he's pulling guys from.
Darn it. Yeah, we'll see about these signings.
You almost caught me. I'm the Galaxy guy on the show, so you almost got me.
Almost. How about Star Spotlight here? Carles Gil. How does he follow up last year's chance creation extravaganza, Doyle? Is it just going to be more of the same? Like, this is just what he does in MLS when he's healthy?
I think that really depends on Bruce. And if they play that freewheeling, wide open 4-4-2 wide diamond again, that is like just like it's so much fun. Then yeah, he'll create a lot of chances, and yeah, they'll lose in the playoffs again. If they go to, I think a sort of a 4-2-3-1 or more of a 4-3-3, something that gets more numbers in midfield. They will not have the off-the-charts chance creation numbers that Heel posted last year, but I think they'll be a better team, and they'll certainly be better equipped to control midfield against high-level competition, which is something that they struggled with last year, in the year before, especially in the playoffs both times, and it's something obviously that we've seen Bruce teams occasionally struggle with back to Kuva, back to the 2006 World Cup. He has chosen to play weirdly naked in central midfield at times, and so I look, it's getting to the point that even Bruce is talking about formations in preseason, and Bruce does not do that. So it's clearly something that he's thinking about. And I'll just say this: with the personnel that the Revs have on hand, like, this is just the most obvious play a 3-5-2 group of players in the league. You know, if you put Heel as a 10 underneath Buxa and Bo with Jose off the bench, you have Bai on one side and DeJuan Jones on the other side as wingbacks, bombing forward, Polster and whichever, like, probably Leggett, you know, deep in midfield. I think that lends so much more stability to New England than what they had last year, even when they were playing well. I think this would give it more stability, and I think that stability would give them the chance to be an even higher upside team in 2022 than they were in 2021.
So it's Omar in the middle, Kessler and Farrell outside of him.
I don't know whether it would be Omar in the middle or Omar off the bench with Bell as a starter. I thought Bell was good in his minutes last year, and Omar seems like a specialist for this team, a rotation piece rather than write him into the 11, no matter the formation.
If I'm guessing what Bruce will do, I would guess he would play Omar, but
yeah,
that's just me guessing at Bruce.
If that's the case, someone needs to go trade for John Bell, because that's a good player. And I think what Doyle said is clear with this team. Of as much success as they had last year, there are tweaks that need to be made. And 2 years ago in the playoffs, they started Scott Caldwell in the 2 games that they won alongside Matt Polster. And I think Maciel's better than what Caldwell can be. And I'd love to see that 4-2-3-1 with him in the team, and then Leggett playing a little bit higher up, sort of to replace what you lost in Tejan Buchanan. I don't know how you get Bo and Buxa both on the field in that scenario. I don't know that you worry about it totally. And I don't think Adam Buxa will be here when the playoffs start. So I don't know that really matters.
Can I make a point, though, that, like, long term, this is a CCL team, and, like, they have pieces, man. Like, they should be thinking about CCL as much as they are playoffs. And there's one thing, like, Bruce has done everything in MLS. The one thing he hasn't done, the one nobody's done, is take a team to the Club World Cup.
Yeah, but I don't know that playing that 3-5-2 is what wins them. That is my point. Like, I think if Bo's out there, or you start Buxa, you bring Bo off the bench, whatever, in CCL, that could be the way that they can win. And it makes them a stronger team right now, especially because you haven't played in that system yet. And so you have to still adjust to that. Is that the way you go into CCL? Is that the way you get your best chance? Now, let's be real. They're getting a layup in the opening round. They're going to play a Haitian team twice at home.
Yeah.
So they get time to get their feet under them rather than other CCL teams. And I agree with you, Doyle. I think the push should be for CCL. I just think that might be the best way to do it. And you just have to make that decision. And part of this is tough because you don't want to hurt the sale number on Buxa. But if that's what makes your team the best, then that's what you do. If playing Gustavo Bo maybe a little out of position for a little bit makes you better, then potentially that's what you do as well. But there's improvement space for this team. It's probably not going to be on regular season points, right? It is on winning knockout games in the postseason. And I'd be surprised, especially if Matt Turner does leave in the summer, if they push for, well, if he physically actually goes and doesn't stay around, which I don't know if that's 100% decided. But if he leaves in the summer, I'd be surprised if they won Supporters Shield. And I don't think they care. They won it last year. That's a trophy. That's an accomplishment. As your haiku says, MLS Cup and CCL should be the goal.
I think there's 2 sort of like windows for them. And it all comes down to winning a trophy. It's CCL and then into the playoffs. And you can throw Open Cup in there as well. And we'll see how Bruce handles that one. Over the years, it hasn't always been his priority. Yeah. Hey, we're coming to Carolina, baby. Bruce is not coming, but the Revs are going to go to Carolina. Our over-under on this one, and I'll just move that one up, is trophies 1.5.
Under.
I would take the under. Just on odds. I just think it's hard to win more than one trophy.
What if we make the over-under 0.5?
I'll go over.
David Goss predicting the Revs.
I would probably still take the under.
So you predict what?
CCL champion.
All right, wait. We just had that.
Hey,
David Goss thinks that this year
mock up the social media like quote post. Yeah. David Goss, Revs will be CCL champions.
There is outside of Tajon Buchanan, there is no downgrade on this team, and Buchanan's a match winner. I get that, but the biggest pieces on this team are coming back. They've played together for 3 years now. It's reasonable to believe that they should come in and play at a high level in CCL.
I love it.
They have a decent bracket as well. Obviously, we get the 2 home games against Cavalier, and then you have either Saprissa or Pumas on the other side, assuming the Revs get through that one, and then it's Montreal, Santos Laguna, Cruz Azul, and then I think the Forge or who's the
Forge. It's
Forge. So you don't have some of the bigger, you don't have the Giants. I mean, look, Cruz Azul and Santos are no nothings, but that comes till the semifinals. So we'll see for them on that one. How about the 22 under 22, Dave? They're not going to play a 22 under 22 player significant minutes, but there's a good narrative going down within the organization as to what could be happening in the future.
Yeah, they signed Noel Buck, 16 years old, and they put him in preseason straight into the first team. So he's a player that will be around the first team, which there's a ton of excitement about. But when you look at the Revs' big picture, it's now the focus on the academy. And when you talk to people in the front office, they said the job to come in was first fix the first team, then the second team, and now they have the focus and the resources to fix the academy level. When you look at the way Kurt Analfo has been specifically engaged with it and working on it, and then Rob Becerra, who's a guy that Bruce and Kurt Analfo go back really far with. They didn't bring him in as a first-team assistant, right? His job is as an academy director. This is something that this team cares about. It's something that they're focusing on. It's something that they're pushing. And then you have Shalry Joseph, who managed their best youth team, now as an assistant, which gives you that bridge where he knows the qualities in the young players, and also he can be a face with when they come into the first team training, that he can work with them and they can feel comfortable. And I think the Revs understand what it takes from a financial background and just from a focus background to be competitive. They do not have the best region to pull players from, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to produce pro-level players. They know that. They've also worked on creating setups so that players from around the region can come and live there and be comfortable. So I think there's a clear focus. And when you look at the Revs, they've been able to sort of bridge under Bruce Arena. They nailed all those draft picks. And that gives you time where you have cheap young players on your salary cap who can keep you competitive. Now, DeJuan Jones gets his new contract. You sell Tajon Buchanan. Henry Kessler will come off his GA deal. At some point, Matt Turner being sold. How do you replace that in your squad? I think that's going to come through the homegrowns.
All right, I think we kind of did the predictions here. I mean, we got Dave out here like guaranteeing a trophy, guaranteeing whatever it might be. So that seems like a pretty good prediction. We're still waiting on the Josie stuff. I mean, I think it's going to happen here. It's just a matter of technicalities and how the transaction works out. That's all very complicated. I've spent a lot of time in the rules, but when it happens, it'll happen. We've already discussed it, but it's a big season for the Revs, and certainly we'll be paying close attention when they hit CONCACAF Champions League very soon. I believe actually that's Tuesday the 15th. They are the first game. That's a 6 p.m. Eastern game in Foxborough against Cavalier from Haiti. So a big opening round for the Revs. You would think it's a warm up, but man, anytime you think something in CCL, you better check yourself. Sounders know that. They absolutely know that, but this is their season. 2021, their haiku was Dynasty, new goals. Stay at the top. Sans Morris. They invented this. And they were mostly at the top. It was a big season for them, even with a lot of missing players, whether it be Nico Lodero or Jordan Morris. 2022, the haiku. Paper juggernauts. Trophies fuel dynasties. Will they deliver? On paper, man. On paper, they are really good. Like, they are probably the best on-paper team in the league right now. But the Sounders know better than anybody else. Like, you got to deliver on that. You've got to actually get the results. You've got to make the runs in the playoffs. You got to get hot at the right time. Their key signings, we've talked about it a lot. Albert Rusnak in free agency, maybe the biggest free agency signing of all time. His performance and the results therein will probably determine that. And then they re-signed a bunch of guys, whether it be Kellen Rowe, Will Bruin, Freddie Montero, Stephen Cleveland. Those are sort of role players within the squad. But then they re-signed basically everybody else, it seems like, to new long-term contracts through like 24. And God bless the Sounders and Garth Lagerwey for putting all the contracts out in the open and saying, this is how long guys are signed. That makes this so much easier to analyze. But they're poised, man, and they know they can compete on all fronts, Doyle, and that's the goal. Now it's just a question of whether or not they'll do it.
It is like that is definitely the question. I just think that we should stop using the word dynasty when talking about this team. They have one trophy over the last 5 years. One trophy. That's it. There's nothing that they can do this year that makes them a dynasty, right? They've been a good team for a long time. This is not a dynasty situation. This is a, can they get back over the hump as they've done one time in the past 5 years? They have a lot of pieces.
Can I just say that? Go
ahead.
Just listen to the haiku, man. Trophies fuel dynasties. Okay. They got to win the trophies. I didn't say they were a dynasty.
But the implication...
At Matt Doyle 76
the implication
on Twitter, Sounders fans
is that if the Sounders win a trophy this year, that makes them a dynasty, and that's just not the case. They've just been a really good contention level team for a long time.
Is MLS Cup 2016 6 years ago then?
Yeah. It's 2022.
If they win a trophy this year, they would have won 3 trophies in 6 years and been to 3 other finals. Is that correct? Leagues
yes.
Cup, MLS Cup.
Yes.
Twice.
Yeah.
So 6 finals in 6 years with 3 trophies. Sounds pretty good to me.
It's good. It's not a dynasty.
Maybe not dynasty side. Yeah. Okay. All right. Star Spotlight. We have Nico Lodeiro down as our Star Spotlight. But the bigger question I might ask is, who is the star? Is there a singular star on this team?
It should be Raul Ruidiaz. And well, it needs to be if this team is going to become a dynasty. And you know, we saw the on-off with him last year when he was healthy and he was on. He was able to carry this team like almost single-handedly. Shoulder the goal scoring burden. That should not be the case this year. The hope is that Jordan Morris gets back and is himself, that Lodeiro gets back and is himself, and that Rusnak plays like he did down the stretch under Pablo last year in RSL, and that João Paulo has the type of season in 2022 that he had in 2021. And then it suddenly doesn't all fall on Raul Ruidiaz, but Raul Ruidiaz can still play at that level with those guys around him. And then we're talking about potentially a 70-point team, potentially a CCL winner, once again a deep run in the playoffs. Maybe, I don't know, the U.S. Open Cup. Maybe they want to get back to their roots with that. Like, they have all the makings of a team that can compete at a high level across multiple competitions. And the fact that they got all the work done in the winter, which we know that Garth Lagerwey does not like to do, says that he kind of thinks that as well. And their path in CCL is easier than the Revs path. They're on I think, a more manageable side of the bracket. They have Motowa in that first game, and then they'll play Club Leon most likely in the quarterfinals if both teams advance. And like, Leon's good, but we saw what could happen to them last year in the CCL, and that's the only Liga MX team in that side of the bracket. So like, they're going for it, and it's understandable as to why. Motagua, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I was like, there's Japanese teams now.
I'm going to move up the over-under. 1,500 minutes for Nico Lodeiro. That feels low to me, all comps.
Yeah.
But Brian Schmetzer's talking a big game about Nico, saying he's ready to go. He's certainly going to be in these lineups. Like, but I don't know. Last year it was like 500 minutes.
Yeah, I
mean, they just had stop, start, knee issues pop back up.
Not. Yeah, last year he wasn't a healthy player. He wasn't a part of the squad, and what was impressive was what they were still able to put together. I'm going to go under. I think that's the safe bet, one, in terms of his health, and the other is, if someone comes and offers something for him, you already have Rusnak in the team. You've got Jordan Morris, you've got Leo Chu, you've got Ruidiaz and all those vets. I don't think Seattle would say no. So I think there's 2 ways in which he doesn't perform over that number, and so I think it's the safer pick.
I'll take the over.
I'm going to go over. Yeah, I'm going to take the over too. I just think 1,500's pretty. I mean, I guess it's not low because he started 20 games in 2020, and that was still only about 1,800 minutes. I think this is me just being hopeful and looking at this team and saying, my God, what could they be with a semi-healthy Nico Lodeiro? I mean, we're talking about one of the best players in MLS, a perennial MVP candidate, like a double-double-esque dude just about every season he's been in the league, at least like 15 to 20 combined goals and assists, and everything he does, not on the ball as well, which has been prodigious and maybe the reason why he's sort of suffered these injuries down the stretch here. I'm hopeful. I want to see more Nico Lodeiro. I want to see this Sounders team reach their absolute peak, and to do that, I think that they have to have Nico. And to do that, I think CCL is a big part of that. I mean, they had Olympia as a big disappointment 2 years ago. Their longest run in this, despite being in, I think, 6 CONCACAF Champions League, was to the semifinals. They lost to Santos Laguna, and I want to say 12-13. We had a bunch of questions. It's our mailbag questions. What's the floor? What's the ceiling in CCL? Have they done enough to win this thing? Can they make history?
Yeah. Doyle laid it out. 1, the schedule that they have, but 2, as I said with the Revs, this is a team entirely of returning pieces that played at a high level last year. If Lodeiro's back, and if not, they brought in Rusnak, who is not at Lodeiro's level, but he can add similar attributes to this team and take the load off some of the other players. And so there's, I think, completely realistic to expect and hope that Seattle can make a CCL final run. And I think this is a group that can step on the field and believe they can win against anyone. I mean, you're talking about Alex Roldan now, who's played in, 10 World Cup qualifiers as basically a captain for El Salvador in the Hex, so has an understanding of the region and the competition. Nuhu on the other side, who just was voted in the best 11 at AFCON. Arriaga's now settled in. You've obviously got those 2 pieces in midfield. So, yeah, there should be an expectation and a hope. Here I go. It's early February. Hope is rising in me. And the taller you go, the harder you fall.
So are you predicting then a New England Revolution, Seattle
Revs.
Sounders, CCL final? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Is that what you're doing, David?
Somebody has to.
The Revs would win.
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it. It feels like you are right there.
I would be the
Dave.
guy to do it.
Yeah.
I would be the one to make that mistake.
Who wins more trophies this year? Sounders or Revs?
Sounders.
Sounders are going to have all their best players for the duration of 2022. The Revs are losing Matt Turner and probably Adam Buksa this summer, and I think that matters.
And also, they've shown that they can compete in multiple competitions where the Revs, not that they can't, but I don't know that Bruce has shown that he cares about competing in Open Cup. And so I think you look at...
To be fair, I don't know that Schmetzer has shown that either. But they have shown the ability to
we haven't seen
compete
one in a while.
across competitions, yeah. Yep.
And I think they'll probably put more into the regular season when it comes down to the end.
Yeah.
And the Revs, who just won a Supporters' Shield and will be focused on Cup.
100%.
We have not talked much about Jordan Morris here, by the way. And that's a double-double player in this league, if healthy. And I hope to hear more about him in the winger conversation as well. By the way, Morris and Lodeiro combined to miss 57 games last year, and the Sounders still did what they did. 22 player to watch. Leo Chu doesn't quite qualify here, but we barely saw him last year. 146 minutes, a goal and assist, but some really bright moments. We'll see how much he can push into this team and make an impact.
Fit this system better, right? He's a natural winger. He didn't really fit the group last year. So now he gets his feet under him, and he probably plays in a more natural position.
Josh Atencio would fit in the 22 under 22 category. 1,500 minutes for him last year, 24 games. Really good young player, but probably a reserve. And maybe that goes into the U.S. Open Cup side of things, where you see some of these younger guys push in and make an impact in the early rounds, and then maybe the Sounders go first team later on. But Atencio, for all intents and purposes, was a first-team player for a very good team last year. So he is definitely one to watch, both at the number 6 and perhaps at center back somewhere down the line, but a talented youngster. How about I think that's basically it, right? Like the "this is fine" meme. Like what really is the floor for this team? Like this is a playoff team, no doubt. I mean, if they don't have a home game, if they're not 1 through 4, that would be a huge disappointment in my opinion. Even if they do make the playoffs, and honestly, if they're not like fighting for and or getting the number 1 seed, that's probably a disappointment for this one.
It's a disappointment, yeah, but like a lot of stuff would have to go wrong. They've like this roster. I would argue other rosters maybe have more high end talent, but not by much. And what this roster has in terms of balance, is just it's stunning. This team should be able to compete. 60 points is the floor. And that's what they got last year without Lodeiro and Morris and Rusnak. And they should do better than that with those guys in.
We haven't talked much about Ymar, but for you, Dave, I know that he's your number one in your heart for center backs, but their center back core is pretty good as well. Sissoko's a good young player as well. Up top to bottom, you're right, Doyle. The balance on this roster is absolutely spectacular. You expect nothing less from a Garth Lagerwey built team. Those are the previews there. We will finish our previews over the course of the next couple shows. We'll get your CCL preview, the complete one, on the next show. Let's talk wingers. Our top fives continue. This was an interesting category, Doyle, so give us some context before we get into our list here about how we had to think about it and what sort of the 2021 season tells us about the crop of wingers in MLS.
2021 was weird because so many teams played without wingers. The Union play a 4-4-2, and the Red Bulls played a 4-4-2 for a lot. A ton of teams went to 3-5-2s or 3-4-2-1s. People call those 3-4-3s, but that's kind of a misnomer because that front line of three is not a forward with two wingers. It's a forward with two guys in the half spaces underneath, and then two wing backs providing the width, whereas a traditional 4-3-3 team, like Sporting Kansas City, plays with two actual wingers, guys who get chalk on their boots, in Johnny Russell and Daniel Shalhoub. It's no coincidence that those are two of the guys in our top five here. So it was just a really weird year. And the other thing is, a lot of the guys who I think we're kind of expecting to be on this list are either recovering from injury or are guys who are just arrived, like Facundo Torres. I would not be surprised at all if he was, in the top 2 or 3 in the entire league for wingers by the end of the season. But it's tough to make a prediction like that in February before he's played an MLS minute.
Here's our top 5. You might have some things to say about this, folks out there. We did not include the likes of Douglas Costa. We did not include, which seems crazy to me looking at it, Luis Araujo, who's one of the most expensive players in this league's history. Alan Velasco did not make it. Facundo Torres, as you just mentioned, didn't make it. Kevin Cabral, preseason All-Star, did not make it. Fragapane, Lod, did not make it. Jimmy Chara, Darren Esprilla, didn't make it. The trio in New York didn't make it. Magno, Rodriguez, Andrade, not even close. So number 5, Daniel Shalhoub.
Santi Rodriguez, by the way, is if he plays the way he did in the playoffs, is on this list. It's just we haven't seen enough of it yet. He's the one, though, of those 3.
Daniel Shalhoub is number 5 here. Shalhoub is going to be real pissed about that. Jordan Morris is number 4. Johnny Russell is number 3 for us. Lorenzo Insigne is number 2. And Carlos Vela is number 1. What do you think people are going to have the most beef with? Vela coming off an injury, still being number 1. Insigne not even being in the league and being number 2. Johnny Russell over Shalhoub. Jordan Morris not high enough. Probably Vela and Insigne, if I had to guess. Probably Vela. People are going to say this is our LAFC bias just coming through once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I could only fight for so many things. I fought tooth and nail to get Insigne on. I could only... Sorry, people. I only have
so make the case for Insigne. Why should Insigne be here?
Because he's going to be the best player in Major League Soccer.
Wow!
On the field this summer.
So already on this show, David Goss has predicted that the Revs win CCL and that Insigne will be the MVP. Is that what you just said?
No, he won't win MVP because he's only going to come halfway through the year. And MVP is more affected by team results than just pure quality of player. Where I don't know what TFC is going to look like when Insigne gets to Canada, so I don't want to claim that. But just pure quality. I think we are looking at one of the greatest acquisitions in MLS history. A true winger, but comes inside, scores a ton of goals. So we'll, stat stuff there, and you'll just see him constantly putting people under pressure, constantly be a focus for other teams. So to me, he had to be on the list if he steps on the field in MLS this year. And yeah, there's a risk that doesn't happen, but I hope it will.
There's about 15 guys.
Any strong takes?
There's about 15 guys who could be on this list. So
yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens this year. But a good crop of wingers, just a little bit of a mystery box. Let's get the one mailbag question in, or at least the analysis of our discussions. Dave, 401-2060 MLS, extra time at MLSsoccer.com if you have thoughts. Guide us through this. Someone likes to collect data.
Yeah, and we are now risking also a doctor collecting data on Anders' blood pressure because he told us we weren't going to do this, and now you're forcing me to do it. And I already closed it because I thought we weren't doing it.
You should know better.
Well, I should know better.
It.
I guess I shouldn't listen to you, or I shouldn't listen to Anders and his expectations.
Correct.
So basically, this is a breakdown of our mentions of every team in MLS over the course of the season. Do you guys want to guess who's number one?
LAFC.
No, but close.
Galaxy.
FC Cincinnati.
Woo!
They are against their stats higher up than they should be. But
they
it's
overperform.
actually Seattle.
Oh, well.
Yeah, exactly.
We mention them every show because Anders is in the chat just spamming Seattle. Yes, Seattle, Seattle, Seattle. Like, come on, does that count as 4 right there?
No, they actually get mentioned because they're a dynasty and a borderline dynasty.
So that's number one. Seattle are number one?
Yes. So Seattle are number one. Seattle are obviously also the best per their. So the way this was laid out was overall mentions, and then the chart was set up based off their finishing in the Supporter Shield race, and then overall mentions as well. So on Supporter Shield, we had the Colorado Rapids were painfully low, 51 mentions. Now, I don't know if this is a full conversation or we just say the name of the team. That I cannot confirm either way. And then
we should probably release this data set to be analyzed by the,
fair.
The powers that be. Like, if it's not peer reviewed, does this have any veracity? I don't know that we can give it any.
So the Revs were 5th. How does that make you guys feel?
Feels low to me. I thought after last year we would have a much higher. Is that 5th just on like the mix between Shield and mentions, or is that on total mentions?
That's on total mentions. They're behind Atlanta United.
Wow.
The two LAs.
Okay, behind Atlanta.
And then Seattle.
So Atlanta's more of a narrative team than a good team, and we know that Weeby runs the show and likes narrative. So, of course, Atlanta is going to be way up there. But I'll say two things for the Revs. They didn't make any big signings last year, and they weren't a team that at the start of the year we were all kind of expecting to be as good as they were.
So it was a gradual build.
Yeah, I would guess
a gradual mentioned build.
Second half of the season, I'm sure the Revs were much higher than the first half.
So the team that somewhat disproportionately didn't get mentioned, which was surprising to me, although if you look on Twitter, it's not surprising to their fans in any way. When you look at the Supporter Shield standings, is DC United. DC United, I think, was 3rd lowest over the course of the season, and obviously they were in the middle of the playoff race where Houston's less surprising because they were less competitive. So there you go.
We'll have to release this data and let you hit us up with your takes on it. I would like to dig in, get some sequels. Yeah, sequels. I don't know. Get some queries going. Mess around and sequel on this thing. Just really get a good understanding of where my leadership of the show has taken us. We shall see. Thanks for listening along. Let us know on Wingers, on all our previews. We'll be back next week to preview CCL, and then we're off and running, man. It's nonstop soccer until the end of the year, given the World Cup and everything else. So, yeah, that's it for us. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Be safe, be healthy, be happy. We'll see you on Monday. Adios.